this is a live event we're having. I'm sitting here today with a friend of mine who I've gotten to know over the years, who's a divorce coach. Okay, and I thought talking to a divorce coach would be something that you guys would all be interested in, and you ladies as well. For the simple reason that in my experience of doing this divorce thing and family court, custody, orders of protection, all of those horrible things that keep us awake at night and make us fearful and overwhelmed, what happens is it's filled with emotion. And it's so difficult to get through it. And it's also difficult to then, after you do get through it, to start all over again. And what Elisa does is she helps people start all over again. She really, I guess the best word to describe what she does is she helps people become the artisans of their own destiny by creating empowerment that they have lost as a result of the trauma they've been through. And I think I just put together a good little blurb for you, okay? And so here's what I'd like to do. I'd like, first of all, Elisa, if you would do us a favor and just give us a little bit about your background, and then I'll ask you some questions and you can fill in the blanks and say whatever you like.
Sure. So my background in business was in sales and marketing and strategic development and developing brands. I became a stay-at-home mom for many years, for 15 years, and then unfortunately I went through a very painful and difficult and really arduous divorce about 6 years ago. And what happened was I really had to reinvent myself. I was so used to being a stay-at-home mom, but it just was not going to be something I could continue doing. I decided that I loved helping people. I literally coached myself through the difficulties of the divorce and the process, as well as after the fact, when the divorce is over and you have to then figure out how to pick up the pieces of your life. And I decided to go back and get trained as a life empowerment and health coach. And what I found is that my own personal experience really has allowed me to understand and feel what many women like yourself feel when going through divorce. It affects people on every level. If you are the unmoneyed spouse in the situation, many times you will have to now figure out how you're going to create money and have a financial life of your own separate from when you were married. And it also does affect how you perceive yourself in this new role of single woman or single man. So my background is very strategic, and I take a very strategic approach with a very kind approach in helping people restart their lives and literally hit the restart button.
When you talk about the empowerment, and I guess people come to you with certain concerns and feelings, what do you find over the years are the three most important things that people should first begin doing?
Well, you know, John, I think part of the problem starts when you first start going through the divorce. A lot of people have expectations. There's a lot of feelings, emotions, anger, sadness. And so the very first thing is to realize that this is a process, and most of the process is a formula. So a lot of people have a hard time recognizing that no matter how mad you get or how angry you get, it's still going to end up a certain way. People have a very hard time dealing with that, especially if they feel a little wronged or upset by the situation. So that's one of the first things that I find and I help people with, to just understand and not try to fight what's going on. Once we get past that, then we kind of get into, well, now what's next? And what I try to do is let people, first of all, be kind to themselves, because a divorce is a very emotional thing. You need to understand when you're going through this that it's part of your life now, and you just need to be as kind as you can to yourself, because then you can think clearly about what's best. So we get into things like goal setting. We look at where you want to be in the years to come, the weeks to come. I also find, so that would be the second thing, to think about where you want to be and start to focus in on that in a laser kind of way.
Set up some goals for yourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because that will result in feeling more empowered, that you're taking charge of your destiny. And I think you said a third thing that I often find is that when I coach someone, there may be a lot that has happened and transpired before I come into your life. We are going to start, and this is a very hard thing for people to understand, we're going to start from now. And we're going to move forward. And forward thinking is the best way to empowerment and having the things you want and feeling whole about the situation. So we don't really, I'm not a therapist, we don't kind of look into all the whys and how did I get here. We're going to assume you're perfect, and we're going to just perfect that into where you want to be.
That's very interesting, to bring up the idea of how emotionally laden people come to you with their concerns during and even after the divorce. And you bring up something very important that you learned from your own experience, and that is that the court, the system, doesn't care about your emotion.
That's right.
And that's such a hard thing for an individual to accept. I can't imagine someone thinking that it's not important that I, as a man, am suddenly not going to be able to see my children every day, every morning, every night. But the system doesn't care, no. I'm afraid. And I don't mean it in a callous way. I mean that the process that you mentioned that exists is one that's designed to settle cases, not necessarily to help families do better. Okay? And that's a very important thing to understand, that you have to realize that there's nothing but emotion out there in yourself while you're going through this divorce and even after the divorce. And the best thing you can do is just learn to accept it, get over it, and move on with setting the goals that you want and begin to work on things. I often said that I think the first thing that should happen when people file for divorce is they should go into a little mock courtroom with a couple of people sitting as witnesses and a fake judge on the bench and just spill their guts and tell how bad they feel. I think they would feel so much better for moving forward. But that's never going to happen. But when you're looking to grow, how do you fashion action steps for people to begin to help them to empower themselves? Do you have a methodology that you use for that sort of thing?
Yeah, and of course, John, everybody's individual and everybody's personality and the way they approach things is different. But there are certain things that are consistent and constant no matter what. And one of the ways we do this is that divorce often leaves you losing a lot of IQ points. That's kind of how I put it. You can be the smartest person in the world, but when you go through something so emotional, sometimes it's very hard to stay in touch with logic and stay in touch with your intellectual side. And that's where I come in, because we try to fashion things to take a look at, like John said, the goal setting, but the action steps that we do are based on small bites, a little at a time, so that you are incorporating this. The process of divorce sometimes can take a long time and you're going through this, but each day over the course of working together, we're going to set some different action steps that will lead to what your goal is. And what one of my jobs is, in addition to being able to be a cheerleader for what you're going through, is also to be an accountability partner. So when we set certain goals, whatever that might be, some people's goals are personal, some have to do with personal growth, some have to do with starting a new career, others have to do with parenting in a single parent situation. It's all unique. But when an action step is put together, it's based largely on where you want to be. And my role and my job is to be your accountability partner and help you to follow through with those things so that you can reach the end result of whatever that may be.
Okay, now, do you have any kind of special techniques that you could share with our audience today about how they can deal with that feeling of being so overwhelmed by all of the things around them that they're going through, and
Yes.
they're getting hit with this, and get me the net worth statement, and I need you to make sure that you allow visitation and be careful not to, so much data is thrown at everybody going through this process. And keep in mind, it's not just divorce. It's things like orders of protection, Sometimes Child Protective Services comes to your door. Who's happy to have that happen?
Right.
Absolutely no one. And you just become so overwhelmed. What kind of things can you offer to people to help them with that horrible feeling?
Yeah, I think if you break down overwhelm, what it really comes down to is the feeling of stress. Most people say that they just feel so much stress. And the one universal thing that I can say, regardless of what your situation is to work on your stress level. So one of the techniques, only one, but it's a fairly universal one, a nice way to calm yourself. If you're about to go into court, if you're about to have to face your future ex-spouse in some capacity.
I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
It's all really about breathing.
I knew it.
And one of the things that I tell everybody, and again, this is good for any life situation that causes you stress. I even tell my teenage girls this, depending on what their stress might be. What you can do, it's a simple technique called a 5-5-7 breath. And if you're about to go into a situation, especially if you are in a revved state and the thoughts are flying through your mind, you're angry, you're upset, you're crying, the brain doesn't know. It's a little interesting fact. The brain doesn't know if you're really relaxed or you're not. So this is a little trick to actually tell the brain, I'm relaxed. What you do is you want to sit calmly as you can be, and you want to breathe in for 5. You want to hold it for 5. And you want to exhale for 7. And you're going to want to do this about 5 or 6 times. What happens is your body, through the calmness of the breath, is literally sending a message to your brain saying, we're calm. Because the brain interprets slow, paced, easy breathing as a sign that it's relaxed. And what that does is also it helps to reset your thoughts. And when you do that, you're able to think a little clearly and not have everything go jumbled through your head. So that would be my best advice. I have a lot of techniques, but that's something that can be used anytime, anywhere.
That technique, by the way, has been used by special forces in the military for years. When you're in a stressful situation, they do the 4-4-4 breath technique. I personally do the 5 times 4. I do 5 seconds breathing in, 5 second holding, 5 seconds breathing out, 5 second holding, and back, and I do that 10 times. The end of the day, at the end of the time when I finish doing that, I say to myself, I'm not going to succumb to what other people say or do or anything. I'm not going to react to anything, because reaction is negative. I'm going to respond, so that this way I can relax and be composed and act in an appropriate way that will be more likely to help me. Whereas if I react, and certainly if you're going through a court case and you've got people kind of denigrating you and saying horrible things, you need to relax so that this way you respond instead of reacting. And breathing is a wonderful technique. I do that sort of thing before I go to trial. And then what I do is I actually close my eyes and I conceptualize, I visualize in my mind what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And it may not ever happen, but it makes me relaxed enough that this way I can think on my feet and not be concerned about reacting. That's really very interesting. Thank you. You mentioned you were future-oriented. What kinds of things can you offer the audience who's watching us today about what you might be able to offer them?
Okay, so, and when I said future-oriented, that doesn't necessarily mean that as a coach I don't take into consideration and understand whatever trauma and upsetment that you've been through. We don't disregard that. But in order to make things happen and to change your situation for the better and for where you want to be as a personally happy and content person, we have to look towards the future. right? Because you can't look backwards and change what has happened. You may not have much control over what is happening in this process, but you certainly can start to put a plan together for, for going forward. And one of the ways that I like to work with people is to, like John was saying, ironically, we do a lot of visualizations. We do a lot of mindset work, looking at your relationship to yourself and working on self-esteem, and in working on self-esteem and being kind to yourself. A lot of people are not that kind to themselves when they're going through the divorce. You have guilt about the marriage not working. You may have guilt over your children. And beating yourself up never works. So we want to get you to a point of seeing yourself as a person who's worthy, a person who deserves happiness, a person who is capable of embracing the dreams and the desires that they want for the future. So I do some work on using meditation techniques, as well as good old-fashioned writing things down. I'm a very big proponent of keeping lists of when we check things off a list. That gives us a sense of accomplishment, and when we feel accomplished, we feel good about ourselves. So those are some of the ways that some of the techniques that I work and incorporate into the coaching as well.
That sounds really interesting. Now, as we begin to get ready to go to dinner, what kinds of offers can you give to our audience today if they decide to get in touch with you?
So the way I work is I work two programs that I have. One is based on 4 weeks, 4 sessions, and the other is based on doing a 12-session package. And again, it's all dependent on what the person's looking for. And of course, the 4-session package, we can keep renewing and working together.
How about consultations to start off? What do you do there?
Absolutely. Free 30-minute consultation, always. No obligation to assess what you're looking for. And everything in coaching is also about chemistry, and you want to make sure that you feel comfortable and I'm the right person for you. So a consultation is absolutely always there for anybody who wants to find out if coaching's for them.
Very good. And you can get in touch with Elise first by calling me if you like. I'm John Zenner, in case you don't remember who I am. And my phone number is 516-746-0180. And if I'm not here, if Teresa may pick up the phone, you can talk to her as well. And Elisa, how would they get in touch with you directly?
So I have a website, and it's at hittingtherestartbutton.com. I can be reached there. I also have an email, hittingtherestartbutton@gmail.com. And my direct phone number is 516-493-1742. So I can be reached in any of those ways.
And I will pay for any collect calls that you make to that number. So you don't have to worry about that. We're going to eliminate that expense right away. Well, it's been great talking to you, Elise. It's been great talking to everybody out there in Cyberland or whatever it is. And we look forward to speaking with you in the future. And we'll be doing this sort of thing on a regular basis. And we'll tell you more about it as life goes on. Have a great evening, enjoy your dinner, and have a wonderful Friday and a weekend. Bye-bye.